Welcome to the Hy-Pro Factory Side Chat Podcast. This is our first podcast where we share a recent case study and we'll then have a discussion about it. My name is Scott Howard. I'm the Strategic Accounts Program Manager and a Senior Trainer. And joining me today is Mike Flick. He's a Business Development Manager and one of our Senior Account Managers here at Hy-Pro. Mike, if you could make introductions and tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure, Scott. My name is Mike Flick, as Scott has mentioned. I have been in the hydraulic and fluid power world for 27 years. I started my first 20 years doing hydraulic systems and automation. And my last 7 years, I've become a filtration expert with Hy-Pro Filtration. Currently, I cover the northeast part of the country, going from Maine all the way down to Virginia, implementing Hy-Pro solutions in water, varnish, and of course, particulate removal.
Thank you, Mike. Today, we'd like to talk about a case study, an application success that you were directly involved in. And what we'd like to talk about is the Hy-Pro way. In particular, there's a step-by-step process of how we help the customer realize a very clean system with minimal usage of filter elements. And part of that would be in the validation and follow-up aspect of things. So in this case, that's what we're going to focus on. So Mike, if you could give a little background on what type of system we're talking about here, just to kind of build the base for this case study.
Sure, Scott, no problem. This happened to take place in a large paper mill located in Virginia. This particular facility happens to run 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So they have very little error or room for downtime or system breakdowns. So this customer wanted to basically get involved in protecting their equipment, and they came to Hy-Pro to not only lower their spending on their filtration a little bit, but possibly improve their oil cleanliness quality at the same time.
Thank you, Mike. That's a good start to building this picture of this case study. I want to mention the success, and then we'll figure out how we got there. The end result was a 75% cleaner operating ISO code, and the filter elements are lasting 4 times as long as what they are used to lasting. So why did they want to test to begin with? How did they come across us? If you could kind of paint that picture.
Well, we were actually doing work with one of their other companies. They happen to have several locations throughout the United States, and we were having success in one of their local mills that was actually nearby. And one of their head reliability people mentioned that they should probably talk to us to see how we can improve their ISO codes.
For this particular application where you're doing filter element performance testing, tell me about some of the things that you went over with the equipment owner before testing even started.
I like to go over expectations and what the testing is going to look like, and also what their current system looks like as well. Start out by reviewing the customer's correct places, and also that the filter housings were sized properly, so you're not actually putting too much flow through a certain filter. We do this to ensure that we're starting at the correct differential pressure and not basically overflowing the system, so you're starting at a high differential pressure and basically not filtering the oil. So after we did that, we sat down with the customer and we started to set up expectations. The first thing that we talked about was, what are their current ISO codes? So we looked at their current ISO code reports or current oil sample reports. After we received those and reviewed them, we also met with the loop techs and interviewed them to find out how long or how often they were changing the filters. And in this case, the filters were lasting approximately about 3 weeks, and they were changing the filters at around 32 psi differential pressure.
Okay, so part of the validation, we're going to confirm that the ISO codes are good, the filter element lasts a long time. The way I like to describe it is how clean is my oil and how long is my filter element lasting. So what were their thoughts on those two?
That's exactly what we wanted to find out is how clean is their oil? And in this case, the ISO code, the current sample reports that they provided gave us the information on what their current ISO codes were. And I believe they were right around 18, 15, 12 was their starting or trending ISO code over time with their current filtration supplier. And after that, after we established that, then we went down to their, not only the lube tech, but we checked with inventory to find out how often they were drawing filters from inventory, and it was every 3 weeks, like clockwork. They were reaching that differential pressure where they had to change out their filters. Now that we have the customer's system information, we're able to review where the customer's ISO codes have been historically and how long their filters have been lasting. The next step is to establish the customer's ISO code limit. This is at the maximum ISO code that the system should be at. And in this case, the customer's ISO code limit was 17, 15, 12. So the next step is to put the Hy-Pro filters in the system so we can start testing. So in this case, what we did was we used 2 sets of Hy-Pro filters. The first set of filters is to establish the new system equilibrium, which would be the new ISO code that the Hy-Pro filter would bring the system to. And then the second set of filters is actually a life test. And this will actually give the customer a good idea of what to expect when they're using Hy-Pro filters, how long they'll last, and how much money they'll be able to save because of the long-lasting life of the Hy-Pro filter.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's great information. So now you review expectations with the equipment owner in preparation for the test. You review why we're going to provide 2 sets of filter elements so we can reach new operating ISO codes, and then we can see filter element life extension or true life. What happened when they started testing? How did that play out initially?
So now that a decision was made to move forward with testing of the filters, 2 sets were ordered. The customer installed the first set of filters, and after they installed the first set, after 2 to 3 weeks, a oil sample was taken, and their new ISO code was at their ISO code limit of 17, 15, 12. At that point, the customer was extremely happy with the ISO code performance, and they wanted to move on to the element life testing portion of the exercise. So at that time, the customer was basically achieving their target ISO code or their ISO code limit of 17, 15, 12.
Okay, so yes, that's great information, Mike. So when you presented this with the goal of trying to reach the maximum amount of filter life with the filter elements, how was that received? Initially, it was a little concerned because they're used to more of a preventative maintenance cycle, more of a time-based, and you're encouraging them to look at more differential pressure-based because it is a duplex assembly. What happened next steps, and how did that end up?
Well, that's an interesting question, Scott, because the mill was happy with the 17, 15, 12 ISO code readings and the 4 to 5 week that they were getting with their differential pressures currently. First, they had lower ISO codes, which helps them have cleaner oil and save money on their spending. And then to put icing on the cake, they actually increased their filter element life, which translated into fewer element changes, which translates into fewer element purchases. And that is how you truly save money, is by eliminating the purchasing of a product and while maintaining and improving your cleanliness in your system.
Okay, thank you for listening to the Hy-Pro Factory Side Chat Podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast on Podbean, Apple, or Spotify. Also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any filtration challenges, please reach out to Hy-Pro, hyprofiltration.com. Thank you.